This must not be the beginning of the end. It must be merely the end of the beginning. Thank you. Good afternoon, noble members of the Lords, honourable members of the Commons, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure for me to be here today, such a privilege to be here, such an honour for me to be able to share my thoughts with you on a topic that is so dear to my heart, bird watching. Ornithology, that is why I'm here, isn't it, Andy? I'm in the right committee room. My favourite bird to spot is the duck. Ducks are adorable creatures, and they're very easy to spot. I'll give you a hack. If it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, and it looks like a duck, and everybody you know says that's a duck, and an eminent team of ornithologists tell you it's a duck, it's probably a duck. Now this is something we all understand because we understand the problem in the financial industry, and so we can join the dots and we can spot the ducks. But the rest of the public can't. And they can't do it because the information that they get is piecemeal. Piecemeal information about misconduct, piecemeal information about FCA inefficacy, and because they're distracted. Do you know why Karl Marx said religion is the opiate of the masses? Because he lived in an age before televised sport. They're distracted by sport, they're distracted by weapons of mass deception, the war on woke, or whatever it is this week, whatever the Murdoch press is peddling this week. And it was the same in Australia. The general public was distracted, received information piecemeal. Those of us in the know, we knew what was going on. We could join the dots, we could see what was happening. But the rest of society couldn't do that. Boy, oh boy, how that changed after we had a Royal Commission. Our Royal Commission enabled us to take a helicopter perspective, a global holistic perspective. That said, our Royal Commission was a failure, and I will circle back to that. But it was a success in many respects. It let the cat out of the bag. It demonstrated to us the greed, the venality, and the dishonesty of our industry at scale and over a sustained and extended period of time. And it tainted the reputation of the industry forever. This is why you need a Royal Commission. It will change a 30-year narrative, and it is at least a 30-year narrative in the United Kingdom. Your Treating Customers Fairly regime was implemented in 2005 because of sustained, extended, long-standing scandals in your financial industry. That was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, that regime was implemented after at least 10 years of scandals. These problems have been going on for at least 3 decades in the United Kingdom. But analogous to Australia, most people, not you, but most other people, don't see the big picture. They are not capable of joining the dots. When they do join the dots, then real change is possible. Real change in a cycle not of boom and bust, but a cycle of greed, dishonesty, regulated inefficacy, and a complete absence of consequences. You need to break a cycle that reminds me of something that Stephen Laycock once said. Lord Ronald said nothing. He flung himself from the room, flung himself upon his horse, and rode madly in all directions. You need to break the cycle of your frustration. You need to paint in the eyes of the public a systemic problem that has been decades in the making. A Royal Commission is the only solution. The Australian Royal Commission uncovered a regulator that is feckless, weak, confused, captured, and suborned. The Australian Royal Commission exposed an industry that is steeped in greed, venality, dishonesty, and arrogance. What it did not expose was an industry that politically captures the legislative process. And that is a very important part of the problem. It's a very important part of why nothing changes, and I will circle back to that. The Australian Royal Commission did all of this using primarily regulator evidence, regulated from ASIC, our version of the FCA. It subpoenaed ASIC evidence, it subpoenaed ASIC data, it subpoenaed what ASIC had in its files. And what it presented in cross-examination and what it uncovered through its own cross-examination was not only damning, gobsmacking, and bewildering, but it changed the narrative in our financial industry forever. It showed us the financial industry is not trustworthy, but the financial industry has escaped consequences for crime for decades. Not misconduct, not mistakes, not miscommunications, criminal activity, knowingly stealing money from the dying and the dead. As Commissioner Haynes said before our Royal Commission, to a witness who was representing ComInsure, one of the biggest and most dishonest insurance companies in the country, an insurance company that knew it was charging life insurance premiums. They're after me. Too late. A life insurance company that knew it was charging life insurance premiums to customers that were dead. As Commissioner Haynes said, you knew you were charging life insurance premiums when there was no longer a life to insure. And they were rewarding each other with bonuses for doing so. This is greed untrammeled. So let me circle back to the points that I said I would circle back to. Yes, our Royal Commission was a failure because nothing has changed. Yes, our Royal Commission failed to identify the nexus between misconduct and political power over the legislature. But that is not a failure of Royal Commissions per se. It is a failure instead in the terms of reference. You can and you should learn from our mistakes. Speak to Kenneth Hayne. Speak to Graham Samuel. They will speak to you. And learn, learn, learn. So how do you bring about a Royal Commission? Well, the first part of the strategy is consistency in messaging. And the second part is you've got to get a bit of a mongrel in you. So let me deal with the first one first. You need to stress and emphasise at every turn, to the media, in Parliament, wherever it may be, these problems are systemic. They are not bitty. They are not piecemeal. They are not here and there. They are systemic and they have been occurring for at least 3 decades. You need to emphasize the human tragedy, because the people you need to appeal to, the public, will understand when you make them understand the human element. You need to emphasize that these problems keep occurring and reoccurring because of an abject failure in supervision. You need to emphasize the manifest injustice that is taking place. And you need to explain how the powers of a Royal Commission are the only thing possible to counterweight the power of the industry, to counterweight the inefficacy and subordination of the regulator. You need to emphasize that a Royal Commission is the only vehicle capable of taking an holistic helicopter view of the problem, and that it is the only thing capable of holding supervisors to account. Finally, you need to emphasize that a Royal Commission is the only thing capable of resisting government pressure to forbear. And you must not underestimate that. After all, it is the United Kingdom that gave the world something as dubious as the light touch. The second point is that you need to release your inner mongrel. And I say what I'm about to say with great affection for our friends from America who are present. Nobody will teach you how to do this better than the Americans. To take the arguments that are offered by your opponents and turn them round. To apportion not just blame, but moral guilt. To turn arguments around at every turn. For example, before the Australian Royal Commission, our industry made the point that a Royal Commission would cost the public too much money. So I wrote an article in the Australian Financial Review in which I said, you're quite right. It will cost the public too much money. In light of the fact that we'll be investigating the things you've done, instead of charging the public, we should charge the industry. I never ran that argument to you. You've got to take their arguments, turn them around, turn it into a stick, and beat them. It is not enough to rebut. You must drive into guilt and blame. You must name and shame. Finally, to those present, I salute you. Your courage, your tenacity, your bravery. But I have to say, if the post office scandal was the greatest miscarriage in British justice, this is undoubtedly great. It has been going on for longer, and it has affected far more people. And it is bewildering. In a country that gave the world the concept of British justice, to see what is going on in this land is unedifying, to say the least. And so I say to you, those of you who are present, those of you who I salute, as much as you have done, you must do more. I will conclude with a quote, and I need not tell you whom I quote, certainly not in this place, when I say, this must not be the beginning of the end. It must be merely the end of the beginning. Thank you.